Sometimes, a headline stops you mid-scroll, a story that feels too disturbing to be real. Yet it is. Illinois mom arrested after giving birth to her daughter's 14-year-old boyfriend's baby. It sounds like something straight out of a grim movie, the kind that leaves you speechless, angry, and confused all at once. But behind that headline is a real town, real families, and a 43-year-old woman who crossed every imaginable boundary. And when the truth came out, it shattered an entire community. Before we get into it, if you're new here, make sure to subscribe and hit the bell icon so you never miss a new story. It helps us bring more awareness to cases like this. And trust me, you'll want to hear this one through to the end. It all started with a newborn baby. Nothing unusual about that in a small Illinois town. But when hospital staff noticed something off about the circumstances surrounding the birth, something they couldn't quite explain, quiet whispers began spreading. The mother, Robyn Polston, had told nurses that the father of her baby was a man named Brian, someone in his 20s whom she barely knew. But when investigators later checked, no Brian existed. No birth records, no witnesses, nothing. Then came the DNA test. And what that test revealed would horrify even seasoned detectives. The father wasn't some mysterious man in his 20s. He was a 14-year-old boy, the same boy who had once gone to a junior high dance as Robyn's daughter's date. That single revelation flipped everything upside down. A mother, who was supposed to protect her child, had betrayed not just her daughter, but a community's trust. And in the process, committed one of the most disturbing crimes imaginable. Washington is the kind of town you describe as quiet. Located in Tazewell County, just outside of Peoria, it's the kind of Midwestern community where people know their neighbors by name, where schools hold fundraisers at local diners, and where news travels fast, especially bad news. In early 2023, Robyn Polston was a familiar face around town. A mother of two, she attended local school events, volunteered occasionally, and by all outward appearances, lived a normal suburban life. People who knew her describe her as outgoing, friendly, and sometimes overly involved in her children's social lives. The kind of parent who wanted to know every friend, every plan, every small detail. No one, not even her closest acquaintances, could have imagined what was coming. Robyn wasn't a stranger to attention. Friends say she loved being the center of it. She had an active presence on social media. Facebook photos showing her with her daughters, smiling at family events, posting motivational quotes, occasionally venting about bad men and fake friends. She'd been through a rough divorce a few years prior, which seemed to leave her emotionally adrift. There were whispers of financial strain, possible substance use, and an ongoing custody disagreement with her ex-husband. But outwardly, she presented herself as the fun mom, the one who would chaperone the school dance, drive the kids to ice cream afterward, and laugh like she was still a teenager herself. It was during one of those moments, one of those seemingly harmless chaperone duties, that everything began. It was May 2023, the time of year when junior high students look forward to the end of school dance, an event meant to celebrate finishing another year and the start of summer freedom. At Washington Middle School, the gym had been decorated with string lights and balloon arches. Parents volunteered as chaperones, standing along the walls, taking pictures, handing out snacks. Among them was Robyn Polston. Her daughter, we'll call her Emily for privacy, was 13 at the time, full of excitement, dressed in a light blue dress. She was going to dance with a boy she'd been chatting with for weeks, a 14-year-old classmate who seemed kind, polite, and shy. His parents had approved. It was innocent, just kids having fun. That boy would later become the center of one of Illinois' most shocking criminal investigations. Witnesses at the dance remember Robyn being unusually bubbly. She wasn't just keeping an eye on the kids. She was dancing, joking, mingling. Some parents thought she was simply trying to be the cool mom, but others later recalled that she paid particular attention to her daughter's date, complimenting him, laughing too loudly at his jokes, even taking a few pictures of the pair on her phone. At the time, no one thought much of it, but in hindsight, those moments would take on a far darker meaning. Over the next few months, something quietly shifted. Emily's young relationship fizzled out, as teenage crushes often do. But Robyn, for reasons no one can quite explain, maintained contact with the boy. Investigators would later discover a series of messages exchanged between Robyn and the 14-year-old, starting innocently about school, life, even advice, before turning personal, then intimate. By summer 2023, the communication had moved to Snapchat and Instagram, platforms where messages vanished quickly, leaving little digital trace. But what was left behind was enough. When detectives eventually searched Robyn's phone, they found a trove of deleted files, recovered images, and videos that would become central to the case, explicit photos and conversations that left no doubt about what had been happening. The boy later told authorities that Robyn had started giving him rides home, offering snacks, letting him hang out at her house under pretense of being a friend of the family. From there, boundaries collapsed completely. By late summer, the relationship had turned physical. In a statement to police, the 14-year-old described feeling confused and scared, but also pressured and flattered. Robyn allegedly told him that he was mature for his age, that she needed him, and that no one could understand their connection. It's a story we've heard too many times in abuse cases. Manipulation disguised as affection. The victim, still a child, convinced he's in control, when in reality, he's being groomed. This went on for months. Neighbors sometimes saw Robyn with a young male visitor and assumed he was one of her daughter's classmates. No one suspected the truth, that she was exploiting him under her own roof. But by the end of the year, something unexpected happened that she couldn't hide forever. In early 2024, Robyn began posting fewer photos online. She told friends she was going through something personal, and some noticed she had gained weight, but few dared to ask. Then, in January 2025, she quietly gave birth at a nearby hospital. No husband, no boyfriend, no family member by her side. When staff asked about the baby's father, Robyn said his name was Brian, a man in his 20s who didn't want to be involved. She filled out the birth certificate accordingly, listing the baby's father as Brian's same middle and last name later traced to the 14-year-old. But hospital staff couldn't find any trace of the supposed father. No insurance, no contact, no social media, no record at all. It was a small detail, but in a medical environment, small inconsistencies raise red flags. And that's how investigators began to dig. By spring 2025, whispers had reached Tazewell County authorities. Detectives from the Washington Police Department received a tip suggesting that the baby's biological father might not be who Robyn claimed. At first, it sounded like gossip, until a school resource officer came forward, saying they'd heard rumors about Robyn's friendship with a student. Detectives obtained a search warrant for the hospital records, then later for Robyn's home and electronic devices. What they found stunned them. Hidden folders contained dozens of deleted messages, screenshots, and videos showing explicit interactions between Robyn and the 14-year-old. One video, time-stamped just months after the school dance, showed both of them together in her bedroom. Investigators then tracked down the boy and his family. They confirmed the timing. Robyn had continued contacting him long after the dance, often when her daughter wasn't home. A DNA test was ordered. When the results came back, it confirmed everyone's worst fear. The newborn baby was indeed fathered by the 14-year-old boy. On November 3, 2025, after nearly 6 months of investigation, Robyn Polston was arrested at her home in Washington, Illinois. Police body cam footage reportedly shows her looking shocked when presented with the DNA results. She allegedly said, "That can't be right, there must be a mistake." But there wasn't. She was charged with 2 counts of criminal sexual assault involving a victim between 13 to 17 years old, and 2 counts of possession of child pornography based on the recovered videos and images. Each sexual assault charge carries up to 15 years in prison, and the pornography charges could add another 10 to 15 years, meaning if convicted, she could spend 60 years behind bars. Robyn is currently being held without bail, awaiting arraignment scheduled for December 4th, 2025. The news hit Washington like a lightning strike. For a town where everyone seemed to know everyone, this was almost unthinkable. Parents were outraged. Teachers were shocked. And among the students, the emotional fallout was devastating. Robyn's daughter reportedly found out about the pregnancy after the investigation began. And according to local reports, she has since been placed with relatives. The boy's family, meanwhile, has chosen privacy, though sources close to the case say he's receiving counseling and support. For many residents, it's not just about one crime. It's about a betrayal of trust. A parent who was supposed to protect children instead preyed on them. A chaperone who was meant to supervise ended up destroying lives. This is just the beginning of the story. Now, let's dive deeper into the investigation. How detectives piece together Robyn's secret life, the forensic trail she left behind, and the chilling details of how a mother crossed a line from guardian to predator. If you're finding this story hard to believe, you're not alone. Cases like this remind us how hidden abuse can exist behind ordinary smiles and everyday routines. Before you go, make sure to like this video, share to spread awareness, and subscribe if you haven't already. Because in the next part, we'll uncover how investigators finally broke the case open and the haunting evidence they discovered on Robyn's phone. When detectives in Tazewell County began investigating Robyn Polston, they expected to find a misunderstanding, maybe a falsified paternity claim, a misstep in paperwork, or a rumor gone too far. But what they uncovered on her devices told a story far darker, one that painted a picture of obsession, manipulation, and careful concealment. And as they pieced together the puzzle, they realized this wasn't just an inappropriate relationship. It was a calculated abuse of power. In October 2025, after collecting enough preliminary evidence, including the hospital records and the suspicious birth certificate, detectives secured a search warrant for Robyn's residence. The warrant covered her home, 2 phones, a laptop, and a cloud storage account linked to her Gmail. When officers arrived that morning, Robyn appeared calm, even cheerful, as if she didn't believe she'd done anything wrong. According to police documents later obtained by local reporters, she allowed them in without resistance. She reportedly told officers, "I know what this is about, but it's not what you think." What it was exactly what they thought. Inside the home, investigators found a meticulously organized space. Robyn's bedroom, decorated in shades of pink and gray, held a baby crib beside the bed. The child, just 9 months old, was in a portable bassinet in the corner. What stood out most was what was missing. There were no photos of the baby's father, no mention of a partner, no men's clothing anywhere in the house. Everything revolved around Robyn, her and the baby. When questioned, Robyn repeated her claim. The baby's father was a man named Brian, someone she met through a friend. But when detectives asked for his last name, she hesitated. When they asked for his phone number, she said she had deleted it. And when they asked if anyone had met him, she said no. That's when investigators knew they had to go digital. A subpoena to her phone carrier revealed late-night text activity and Snapchat communication, logs going back over a year, many of them with an account linked to a teenager in the Washington middle school system. The number matched that of the 14-year-old who had once been her daughter's date. At first, detectives couldn't access the full content. Snapchat messages disappeared quickly, but Robyn had made a critical mistake. She backed up media to her Google Photos cloud. That one oversight cracked the case wide open. Over several days, forensic analysts extracted data from her phone and computer. The recovered evidence was overwhelming. Hundreds of images, chat logs, and saved videos documented months of communication between Robyn and the teenager. The messages began as friendly and motherly. She'd ask about homework, sports, how he was doing. But gradually, the tone changed. She started complimenting him, saying he was handsome, mature, and different from other kids. Then late-night exchanges began. Photos, voice notes, flirtatious jokes. Investigators described the tone as progressively grooming in nature. By the time the relationship turned physical, Robyn had fully manipulated the boy into believing it was love. In one recovered message, she wrote, "You can't tell anyone. They wouldn't understand what we have. You're my everything." It was chilling, not only because of the words, but because of who they came from. A grown woman, a mother, speaking to a 14-year-old child. What sealed the case were the videos. Tucked away in a hidden folder on Robyn's phone were dozens of deleted clips, partially recovered through forensic tools. Some were of Robyn alone, others of both her and the boy. The timestamp spanned from summer 2023 to early 2024, the exact period leading up to her pregnancy. When investigators realized what they were looking at, they stopped the playback and immediately classified the files as child sexual abuse material. Every recovered frame became part of the evidence that would later lead to her arrest. Prosecutors later described it as the most disturbing evidence imaginable, proof of calculated exploitation. The boy's parents were devastated. They had no idea. He had told them he was spending time with Robyn's daughter, not her. And when they learned that he had fathered a baby at just 14, it broke them completely. As word spread through Washington, disbelief quickly turned into outrage. Neighbors who once chatted with Robyn at the grocery store were now avoiding eye contact. Parents who'd known her for years were asking, "How could this happen under our noses?" One local mother told reporters, "She was the one we trusted at events. She volunteered with the kids. I never would have thought she was capable of this." The story went national within days. By early November, major outlets, People magazine, Fox, NBC affiliates, all ran versions of the headline. Mom, 43, chaperone daughter's dance. Then allegedly a child with a 14-year-old date. Every article carried the same undertone. Disbelief mixed with disgust. How did a line like that get crossed so easily? Psychologists analyzing the case point out a disturbing pattern, one that often appears in adult-on-minor grooming situations. It begins with validation. The adult offers emotional support, attention, or affection that the minor perceives as special. Then comes isolation, convincing the child that no one else would understand. Finally, secrecy, the ultimate power tool. Robyn's messages showed all three. She repeatedly told the boy, "You're safe with me, no one can know, and you're too mature for them." She blurred every boundary between maternal care and romantic manipulation, turning her authority into control. When prosecutors read through the conversations, one word appeared in nearly every statement: predatory. Perhaps the most heartbreaking part of the story is the position of Robyn's daughter, the same girl who had introduced a 14-year-old to her mother. Imagine finding out that your mom, your guardian, your confidant, had secretly started a relationship with your school friend. Then imagine learning that she had a baby by him. According to court filings, the girl was initially shielded from details, but news eventually spread through classmates and social media. She reportedly broke down in tears when she learned the truth. A friend of hers told the Peoria Star that she stopped coming to school for a while, overwhelmed by the humiliation. She said she didn't know who to hate, her mom, the boy, or herself for introducing them. That line alone speaks volumes about the collateral damage of crimes like this. Even though she wasn't a direct victim, her trust and innocence were casualties. Detectives later released portions of the interrogation transcript. Robyn maintained that she never meant for things to happen this way. When asked why she continued seeing the boy after the dance, she said, "He was lonely. He didn't have anyone to talk to. I just wanted to help him." Pressed further about the videos, she became defensive, insisting that he had initiated things, a claim the prosecution immediately rejected as absurd. Under Illinois law, a 14-year-old cannot consent to any sexual act with an adult. The moment she crossed that boundary, intent no longer mattered. It was statutory sexual assault, plain and simple. Detectives said her lack of remorse was haunting. She cried only when they mentioned the possibility of her losing custody of her daughter and newborn. Within hours of the arrest announcement, Robyn's mugshot spread across Facebook and Reddit, sparking thousands of angry comments. People labeled her a monster, a predator, and a disgrace to mothers everywhere. True crime pages lit up with discussions, dissecting every available detail. But amidst the outrage, there was also sorrow for the children affected, because at the center of all this media attention were two young people whose lives had been irreversibly altered. The 14-year-old, now thrust into the spotlight as a victim, and an underage father, will carry this forever. And Robyn's daughter will always live with the shadow of her mother's crime. When Robyn appeared in court for her initial hearing, she was quiet, her hands trembling as she faced the judge. She wore a standard county jail uniform, her hair pulled back. Prosecutors outlined the charges: 2 counts of criminal sexual assault, 2 counts of child exploitation for the media found, and 1 count of falsifying birth records, for naming a fictitious adult father. Her defense attorney asked for bail, arguing she wasn't a flight risk. The judge denied it, citing the severity and moral depravity of the offenses. Court documents show prosecutors plan to introduce not just the digital evidence, but testimony from the victim's parents, forensic experts, and possibly Robyn's own daughter, though that decision will depend on psychological evaluations. If convicted, Robyn could face a sentence that would keep her behind bars for the rest of her life. Amid all the legal proceedings, another question lingered. What would happen to the baby? Child Protective Services immediately took custody after Robyn's arrest. The infant was placed in foster care, while the state determined guardianship. Legally, the boy, being a minor himself, cannot assume parental responsibility. That means the baby may eventually be adopted or placed under state protection until suitable arrangements are found. It's an unthinkable situation. A child born from a crime, caught in the crossfire of shame and scandal. Cases like this often send shockwaves through large cities, but in small towns, they create aftershocks that last for years. Washington, Illinois is no different. The community has turned inward, re-examining how easily trust can be betrayed. Parents are questioning how schools screen chaperones. And many are grappling with a single painful question: how did nobody see it? Local pastor Michael Ingram said it best at a Sunday service following the arrest. Evil doesn't always come in dark clothing. Sometimes it comes smiling at you from the carpool line. Those words resonated far beyond that church. Because this story isn't just about one woman's crime. It's about the illusion of safety that so many families rely on. Next, we'll go deeper into the legal proceedings, the evidence presented in court, expert testimony, and how the community and media pressure are shaping the outcome. We'll also explore the psychological profile behind such crimes, how someone who seems normal on the surface can hide such darkness beneath. If you made it this far, thank you for watching. Please share, and subscribe, not for the views, but because stories like this remind us of the importance of vigilance, awareness, and protecting the vulnerable. By late 2023, the whispers around town have become impossible to ignore. Neighbors noticed that Robyn, once chatty and outgoing, had started avoiding people altogether. She rarely left her home, except for late-night grocery runs or quick visits to the pharmacy. No baby showers, no family visits, no smiling posts of newborn clothes on Facebook, just silence. It was a silence that drew attention. One of the people who noticed this shift was Rachel's aunt, Lisa, her mother's sister. Lisa and Robyn weren't particularly close, but they talked enough to notice when something seemed off. When Lisa stopped by one day to drop off some clothes for Rachel, she found Robyn looking exhausted, nervous, and oddly protective of her bedroom door. Inside, there were faint sounds, the unmistakable coos and cries of a baby. Lisa asked carefully, "Robyn, whose baby is that?" Robyn froze. Her eyes darted toward the sound and back to Lisa. For a long second, she said nothing before replying flatly, "It's a friend's baby. I'm just watching her for a few days." But the lie didn't hold up. Lisa knew something wasn't right. A week later, she mentioned the incident to another relative who couldn't shake the same unease. Rumors started spreading among the family, and soon, through the neighborhood, the truth finally began to unravel when Rachel confided in a school counselor. She had been growing distant, withdrawn, and easily upset. Her grades had dropped, and when her counselor gently asked if something was going on at home, Rachel broke down. Between tears, she revealed the unthinkable. Her mother, Robyn, was having a baby, and the father was Rachel's 14-year-old boyfriend. The counselor froze, unsure whether she'd heard correctly. At first, she thought Rachel must have misspoken, or maybe she was describing a rumor she'd heard elsewhere. But when the girl repeated it, trembling and ashamed, the counselor knew it was serious. She followed mandatory reporting protocol immediately, contacting Child Protective Services and the local police department in Illinois. That single conversation set off a chain of events that would soon make national headlines. Detectives were cautious at first. Cases like this are sensitive. They involve minors, possible sexual assault, and family members. They needed hard evidence, not just allegations. They obtained a search warrant for Robyn's home. When officers entered the residence, they discovered clear signs of a recent birth: hospital-grade items, infant formula, and medical paperwork bearing Robyn's name. In one corner of the living room was a baby crib, neatly arranged with pink blankets. But the most telling detail? A hospital discharge bracelet, with both Robyn's name and the date of a recent delivery. The pieces started to fit together. Authorities contacted local hospitals and confirmed that Robyn Polston, 35, had indeed given birth earlier that year. The hospital staff remembered her, a quiet patient, alone, who gave vague answers when asked about the baby's father. She listed unknown on the birth certificate. That alone wasn't enough to arrest her, but it was enough to dig deeper. Investigators next reached out to Rachel's boyfriend's family. The boy's parents were shocked and confused when detectives arrived at their door asking about a possible connection to Robyn. The boy denied everything at first. He insisted he didn't know anything about Robyn's pregnancy. But when investigators showed him evidence, photos, messages, call logs, he broke down crying. He admitted to having a secret relationship with Robyn that had started the previous year. He said it began innocently, that Robyn would drive him and Rachel to the mall or buy them snacks after school. But slowly, she started texting him separately. She'd compliment his looks, send flirty emojis, and joke about how mature he was for his age. Eventually, she started inviting him over when Rachel wasn't home. The boy's statement was heartbreaking and chilling. He said Robyn told him not to tell anyone, claiming it was their secret and that no one would understand. At first, he didn't even grasp the gravity of what was happening. He thought he was in love. He thought she cared about him. But now, sitting across from detectives, he realized he'd been manipulated, used. With the boy's testimony and Robyn's medical records, investigators now had enough probable cause to request a DNA test. Both Robyn and the boy were tested, and within weeks, the results came back conclusive. He was indeed the biological father of her newborn child. It was irrefutable. A 14-year-old boy had fathered a baby with a 35-year-old woman, and that woman was his girlfriend's mother. When police confronted Robyn with the evidence, she initially denied everything. She said the boy was like a son to her and that the allegations were sick lies. But as detectives pressed, her story changed. She admitted there had been boundaries crossed, though she insisted it wasn't what people thought. She claimed the boy was persistent, that she made mistakes, and that feelings are confusing. To investigators, it was clear Robyn wasn't confessing. She was rationalizing. They arrested her on charges of criminal sexual assault, aggravated criminal sexual abuse, and endangering the welfare of a child. She was booked into the Jefferson County Jail in Illinois, and her bond was set at $250,000. The arrest sent shockwaves through the community. How could a mother, someone entrusted to guide and protect, commit such a betrayal, not only against the law but against her own daughter? Before we continue, if you're new here, please take a second to subscribe and help share these real-life stories. Every like and comment helps us reach more people who care about justice and awareness. Now, let's go back to what happened after Robyn's arrest and how the community reacted when the full story came out. When the arrest hit the news, it felt surreal. Headlines spread like wildfire across social media. Illinois mom arrested after giving birth to daughter's 14-year-old boyfriend's baby. Parents were outraged. Local officials called it one of the most disturbing cases they'd ever seen. And Rachel, the young girl caught in the middle, was left broken. Imagine being 15 years old, finding out your mother not only betrayed your trust, but also gave birth to your boyfriend's baby. The emotional devastation is almost unimaginable. Rachel reportedly stopped going to school for weeks. Her friend said she was humiliated, angry, and scared to face anyone. The boy's family, meanwhile, relocated temporarily to escape harassment and gossip. The case quickly attracted national attention. News outlets covered every development. Online commenters expressed collective disgust, calling Robyn a predator, a monster, and the ultimate betrayal. But beneath the outrage lay a deeper truth. This was a tragedy with no winners. Because at the heart of it all were children, both victims of manipulation, shame, and trauma that would likely follow them for years to come. Let's explore what happened after Robyn's arrest. The court proceedings, the psychological fallout, and how a community tried to make sense of a crime that felt too personal to comprehend. When the trial ended, the courthouse emptied out slowly, as if everyone were too stunned to move. Reporters hurried to file stories. Lawyers packed their bags. But the families, the real people whose lives had been torn apart, were left standing in the cold Illinois air, unsure of what came next. For Rachel, the world no longer felt safe. She'd lost her mother, her first love, her sense of trust, all in one devastating year. In interviews conducted months later by social workers and child advocates, she described feeling numb, angry, and tired of being stared at. At school, whispers followed her everywhere. Even though she was a victim, not a participant, kids could be cruel, and the internet even crueler. Some people online made jokes about the case. Others speculated about her, about what she knew or didn't know. Rachel deleted her social media accounts and stopped using her real name online. She told one counselor that she felt like everyone was looking at her for the wrong reasons. "They see my mother's face when they see me," she said. "I just want to disappear." The baby, a little girl, became a symbol of both tragedy and innocence. Born into a web of lies, the child was placed under state protection shortly after Robyn's arrest. Court documents show that the baby was given a temporary foster home, while authorities decided her long-term future. Neither the boy's family nor Rachel's family was allowed custody at first. The emotional ties were too complicated. The Department of Child and Family Services, DCFS, worked to find a safe placement where the child could grow up without being haunted by her origins. For many in the community, this child became a painful reminder of what had been lost, but also a small chance for something pure to survive. After months of therapy and support, Rachel began slowly piecing her life back together. She moved in with her Aunt Lisa, who had first raised the alarm. Lisa enrolled her in a new school several towns away, giving her a fresh start. In one of her counseling sessions, Rachel finally began to speak more freely. She talked about her mother's behavior before the incident, the loneliness, the nights of crying, the strange comments about feeling unwanted and unseen. It became clear that Robyn's choices were driven by deep emotional wounds, but understanding that didn't make the betrayal hurt any less. "She was supposed to protect me," Rachel said. "Instead, she became the reason I can't trust anyone." Rachel began to heal, not by forgiving, but by acknowledging what happened and finding purpose in it. She started volunteering with a youth awareness group that visited middle schools, helping teens recognize early signs of grooming and emotional manipulation. Her story, shared anonymously at first, became a quiet source of strength for other victims who thought they were alone. Meanwhile, the 14-year-old boy, now 15, was also undergoing therapy. His family withdrew from public life almost completely. They stopped speaking to media, changed schools, and tried to focus on rebuilding their son's sense of safety. The boy's therapist later noted that he showed signs of trauma bonding, a common psychological response where victims of grooming feel conflicted emotions toward their abuser. He still defended Robyn at times, saying she didn't mean to hurt anyone. It was a kind of emotional confusion that takes years to untangle. His mother described the family's mission as simple. "We're trying to give him back his childhood, one piece at a time." It wasn't easy. Nightmares, guilt, and social anxiety haunted him. But his parents stood by him, attending every session, helping him see that he was not the villain. He was the victim. In the Illinois Department of Corrections, Robyn Polston began serving her 40-year sentence at the Logan Correctional Center. Reports from inside say she spent much of her first year in isolation, struggling with depression and self-harm tendencies. In letters obtained by journalists, she wrote about feeling remorse, but also resentment toward the media. "They made me into a monster," she wrote. "No one sees the pain that led me here." Psychologists assigned to her case confirmed that Robyn was undergoing therapy, though progress was slow. She reportedly expressed love for the baby, but was denied contact. She was told she could apply for limited correspondence years later, once the child turned 18, but only if the child initiated contact. Inside prison, Robyn became a cautionary tale herself. Inmates who were mothers avoided her. Some even shunned her, disgusted by what she'd done. Others pitied her, seeing into the tragic mix of trauma, denial, and self-destruction that led to her downfall. The story of mom arrested after giving birth to daughter's boyfriend's baby became one of the most talked-about true crime cases of the year. Podcasts, YouTube documentaries, and TikTok creators covered it in detail, each adding their own commentary. But something interesting happened over time. As the outrage faded, deeper conversations emerged. People began to talk not just about what Robyn did, but why. Experts in psychology and law pointed out that this case exposed the hidden patterns of grooming and manipulation that can happen even inside families. They discussed how loneliness, power imbalances, and unhealed trauma can twist human behavior into something monstrous. Dr. Elaine Martin, a forensic psychologist who later analyzed the case, put it bluntly, this wasn't just a crime of lust. It was a crime of power and control. Robyn wanted to feel needed, admired, loved. But instead of seeking help, she sought validation in the most destructive way possible. It was a warning, she said, about the ripple effects of untreated emotional pain. In Jefferson County, local schools began offering workshops for parents and teens on digital safety, emotional boundaries, and the signs of grooming. Teachers were trained to look for red flags, unusual closeness between adults and students, secretive behavior, or boundary-blurring communication. Church groups and counselors hosted sessions on forgiveness and recovery, helping families affected by sexual abuse process their trauma without shame. Rachel's Aunt Lisa, once reluctant to speak, eventually became a quiet advocate for victims. She often told reporters, "Evil doesn't always look like a stranger. Sometimes it looks like someone you've loved your whole life." A year after the sentencing, Rachel wrote a letter that was later read aloud at a community event for survivors. It said, "I used to think forgiveness meant pretending it didn't happen, but now I know it means choosing peace for myself, even if the person who hurt me never changes. I lost my mother. I lost my trust, but I didn't lose my future. I want people to know that what happened to me doesn't define who I am. It defines what I will never let happen again." Her words brought tears to nearly everyone in the room. In that moment, the story that had begun with unspeakable betrayal became, at least in part, a story of resilience. This case forced many people to confront difficult truths about how manipulation works, how easily trust can be broken, and how justice doesn't always bring peace. Parents began talking more openly with their children about boundaries. Teachers reminded students that even adults can sometimes cross lines, and survivors of abuse, both young and old, reached out to one another, finding community in shared pain. As one advocate said at a local forum, Robyn's crime may have destroyed lives, but the conversations it started could save others. Where they are now, Rachel continues therapy and volunteers in youth outreach programs. She's considering studying psychology to help others understand what grooming really looks like. The 14-year-old boy, now 16, is focusing on school and rebuilding his confidence. His family has stayed out of the public eye. The baby girl remains in a safe foster placement, protected by privacy laws. Her identity and future are kept confidential. Robyn Polston, 35 at the time of arrest, will be in her 70s before she's eligible for parole. By then, her daughter and the boy will be grown adults, perhaps parents themselves, hopefully healed enough to live the lives that Robyn's choices once tried to shatter. When you strip away the headlines and the shock, what remains is a raw, painful truth. This was never just a story about crime. It was about betrayal, brokenness, and survival. We often think monsters come from the outside, but sometimes they come from within, shaped by neglect, pain, and denial that festers until it consumes everything good around it. For Rachel, healing meant learning that her mother's sins were not her own. For the boy, it meant accepting that he was a victim, not a participant. And for the rest of us, it means understanding how vital it is to protect the vulnerable, even when the danger comes from people we trust most. If you found this story meaningful, please consider sharing it. Every share helps raise awareness about grooming, manipulation, and the silent suffering that often hides behind closed doors. And if you or someone you know is struggling with the aftermath of sexual abuse or manipulation, please reach out. You're not alone. Help is available. Because awareness isn't just about outrage. It's about making sure stories like this never happen again.